What happens when a routine traffic stop turns into a turning point for everyone involved? When Officer Jack Lawson pulled over a sleek black sedan in the early evening haze of a quiet Baltimore suburb, he thought it would be just another stop. But this time, he was about to confront something far bigger than a busted taillight or a routine citation. You think that car gives you some kind of pass? Jack's voice had that sharp, clipped tone that hinted at irritation beneath the surface. Inside the car, a composed black woman kept both hands on the wheel, her expression unreadable, steady, not afraid, not flustered. And that got under Jack's skin in ways he couldn't quite admit. "License and registration," he barked, though she'd already handed them over. He flipped through the documents like he was hunting for something. A mistake, a justification, a crack in her story. "Is there an issue, officer?" she asked, voice cool, confident, controlled, too controlled. Jack narrowed his eyes. Most people, especially people who looked like her, reacted with fear, hesitation, defensiveness. But she wasn't giving him any of that. "You're driving a vehicle worth more than what most people make in 2 years," he said. "That's reason enough to ask questions." "May I ask why I'm being detained?" she replied, tone level. No sarcasm, no anger, just pointed clarity. Jack could feel his temperature rising, the control he normally felt in these encounters. Slipping. He hated how calm she was, how sure of herself she seemed. "Step out of the vehicle," he ordered. She hesitated, just for a moment, then moved deliberately, her heels clicking onto the pavement. She stood taller than expected, in a tailored navy blazer that screamed power. She looked him in the eye, no fear, only certainty. "This is a mistake," she said plainly. Jack ignored the words. He reached for his cuffs. "Turn around." The steel clicked cold around her wrists, and as he guided her toward the back seat of the cruiser, she turned slightly. "You don't know who I am, do you?" Jack scoffed. "Doesn't matter." But the words echoed in his mind as he drove her to the precinct. At the precinct, Officer Jack Lawson stood with crossed arms outside the holding cell, watching her through the glass. She sat there, hands calmly folded in her lap, her posture composed like she was waiting for a flight delay rather than facing charges. It was unnerving. She wasn't supposed to look like that. Jack flipped through her file for the 3rd time. Naomi Sinclair. Clean record, valid license. A listed address in a gated community on the north side. No red flags. His partner, Officer Diaz, leaned over and peered at the screen. "You sure about this one, Jack?" he asked. "I ran her plates. Everything checks out. Hell, her car's registered under her own name. She didn't resist, didn't raise her voice. Complied the whole time, right?" Diaz pressed, eyebrows raised. Jack shifted uncomfortably. She was being evasive, that kind of composure. That's hiding something. Diaz smirked. Or maybe she just knows her rights. Jack waved him off, brushing the unease building in his gut. But her words lingered. "You don't know who I am." The next morning, Jack walked into the courthouse with the confidence of a cop who thought he had everything under control. He expected a quick hearing, maybe a minor fine. Maybe she'd plead no contest. But when he entered the courtroom, something felt off. People were whispering. Some turned to look at him with expressions that weren't curiosity. They were recognition. Judgment. At the front, Naomi Sinclair stood tall. Gone was the casual outfit from the day before. She now wore a tailored gray suit, elegant yet authoritative, her natural curls pulled back. She didn't look like a defendant. She looked like she belonged behind the bench. Jack's brow furrowed. What the hell? Then her voice rang out, sharp, commanding, professional. "Your Honor, before we proceed, I'd like to make a statement for the record," she said, addressing the judge. "I am Naomi Sinclair, Senior Federal Prosecutor with the Department of Justice. I'll be representing myself in this matter." The air was sucked out of the room. Even the judge blinked. "Ms. Sinclair, this is highly unusual." Naomi gave a faint smile. "Yes, Your Honor, but in light of the circumstances of my arrest, I believe it is not only appropriate but necessary." Jack froze in place. He wasn't looking at a routine traffic stop gone slightly off course. He was looking at a career-defining mistake. And Naomi, she wasn't just here to clear her name. She was here to make a point. The judge leaned forward. "Very well, but I expect all arguments to remain relevant to the charges at hand." "Of course, Your Honor," Naomi replied, then turned to the courtroom gallery. Reporters had already begun to slip in. Civil rights advocates were in the back rows. Something about the energy shifted. Naomi spoke with measured clarity. "I intend to demonstrate not just my innocence, but to highlight a pattern of overreach in law enforcement. What happened to me isn't an isolated incident. It is a symptom of something systemic." Jack could feel the heat crawling up his neck. This wasn't just about her. She was making it about all of them. Every officer who'd made assumptions. Every citizen who'd been mistreated and never had a courtroom to speak from. And now the world was watching. Naomi stood with the calm resolve of someone who had spent years wielding the law, and now she was using it to cut deep. She began recounting the arrest point by point, her voice unwavering, every sentence landing with the weight of a gavel. "I was pulled over without probable cause," she said. "I provided valid identification, remained calm, and fully complied. Yet I was handcuffed, detained, and humiliated. This isn't about a traffic stop. It's about profiling." Jack shifted in his seat, hands clenched into fists under the table. His attorney leaned in. "Say nothing," he whispered. "Don't react, just listen." Naomi continued. "This case isn't about me alone. It's about the culture that allows law enforcement to assume guilt based on skin color or the price of a car. It's about the unchecked authority that sees confidence in a black woman as a threat." She turned and walked slowly toward the jury box, her heels echoing like a metronome of reckoning. "I've prosecuted hundreds of cases. I've stood beside victims, fought against corruption, and demanded better. But yesterday, I became the victim of the very system I've spent my life trying to reform." The courtroom was silent. No coughs, no shifting in seats, just quiet, heavy. Jack felt something sharp twist in his chest, not anger, not defiance, guilt. Naomi began calling witnesses. A series of familiar faces from the courtroom's public gallery took the stand. People who had sat in cases Jack had handled in the past. A man in his early 20s recounted, "Officer Lawson pulled me over, claiming I was swerving. I wasn't. Then he asked if I had drugs in the car. I'd never even had a speeding ticket." A mother spoke of being pulled over with her children in the back seat, made to sit on the curb while Jack searched her vehicle, only to find nothing. No apology, no explanation. Case after case, the pattern became clearer. Jack hadn't broken the law in an obvious way, but he had operated under a different kind of law, assumption. A law that whispered, "This person doesn't belong here." The most damning moment came when Naomi played the dashcam footage. The courtroom watched in silence as the screen displayed her calm demeanor, Jack's tone growing sharper, more commanding. She asked direct, respectful questions. He grew visibly agitated. The contrast between them was glaring. And when the screen cut to black, the weight in the room was suffocating. Jack sat frozen. Naomi turned to face the judge. "This is not about vilifying one man," she said. "This is about accountability, It's about drawing a line between authority and abuse. Her gaze landed on Jack. And I hope Officer Lawson, and others like him, begin to understand that line, because if we don't, we all suffer. During the recess, Jack sat in a quiet hallway corner, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. His partner, Officer Diaz, approached slowly, coffee in hand. He didn't say anything at first, just sat down beside Jack and stared at the tiled floor. "How bad is it?" Jack muttered. Diaz sighed. "It's not good. She's not just a lawyer, man. She's brilliant. She's backed everything with files, witnesses, video. It's airtight." Jack clenched his jaw. "I didn't do anything illegal." "No, maybe not," Diaz replied. "But you didn't do it right either." Jack looked up, eyes bloodshot. "What are you trying to say?" "I'm saying maybe it's time to ask yourself why this keeps happening." Diaz's voice was calm, firm. "You see people like Naomi and assume they're trouble, but have you ever seen them as people first?" Jack opened his mouth, then closed it. He didn't have an answer. Back in the courtroom, Naomi brought it all home. She replayed the dash cam footage, but this time she paused at moments that mattered. Her calm voice, Jack's escalating tone, her deliberate cooperation. She didn't need to embellish anything. The facts were her sword. "Your Honor," she said, "this case isn't an anomaly. It's a mirror, one we all need to look into. This culture of unchecked power must be challenged, or it will continue unchecked." She scanned the room, not just the judge, but the gallery. "I'm not here for vengeance," she continued. "I'm here because silence only protects the broken system, and I refuse to be silent." The final blow came when she presented records of prior complaints. Small things, dismissed before, but together they painted a picture, a pattern. And Jack? He wasn't the villain of a single act. He was the reflection of a flawed mindset, the kind Naomi had spent her life trying to dismantle. When the judge called for closing statements, Naomi's voice didn't waver. "I don't ask for Officer Lawson to be punished to the full extent of the law. I ask that he and this department confront the biases that led to this. I ask for reform. I ask for accountability, not for me, but for every voice that's never made it to this courtroom." The courtroom erupted in quiet applause, not loud, not wild, but enough. Jack sat still. His mind raced. He thought of every stop, every gut feeling he had used as justification. Every time he said, "It's just procedure." And for the first time, he wondered how many people had he failed. The courtroom hushed as Judge Bennett returned to the bench, her expression unreadable as she shuffled through papers. After reviewing the testimony, video evidence, and formal complaints, she began, her voice calm but resolute. "It's clear that this case extends far beyond a traffic stop. It exposes ongoing issues of bias and procedural overreach that cannot be ignored." She turned her gaze to Jack. "Officer Lawson, this court is referring your actions to internal affairs for formal review. In addition, I am ordering mandatory implicit bias training, not just for you, but for your entire precinct." Jack sat motionless, face pale, then to Naomi. "Ms. Sinclair, your professionalism in this courtroom has been exemplary. Your bravery in confronting these issues publicly has not gone unnoticed. This court commends you." The gavel struck. It was over. In the courthouse lobby, a buzz of reporters surrounded Naomi, but she remained composed. Her voice cut clearly through the noise. "This was never just about me," she said. "It's about changing a system that too often forgets the people it's supposed to serve." Nearby, Jack watched from a distance. Diaz approached quietly. "You okay?" Jack shook his head slowly. "Not really, but I think Maybe I'm starting to get it. Without another word, he stepped forward. "Miss Sinclair?" he called, his voice softer than usual. Naomi turned, her eyes cautious. "Yes? I wanted to say thank you." He paused. "And I'm sorry for the way I treated you, for what I assumed, for not seeing you." Naomi studied him, arms crossed. "Do you really understand what you're apologizing for, or is this just damage control?" "I'm trying to understand," Jack replied. "And I know that takes time, but I'm not here to save face. I'm here because you opened my eyes to something I should have seen long ago." She didn't answer right away, then gave a slight nod. "Words are a start," she said, "but change takes more than that. I hope you mean what you say." "I do," Jack said. "I'm ready to prove it." Weeks later, Jack found himself in a modest community center downtown, sitting in a circle of folding chairs surrounded by strangers. "Welcome to the first session of our anti-bias training," said the facilitator, a young black woman with kind eyes. "This is a safe space. Let's begin with why you're here." When it was his turn, Jack stood. "My name's Jack Lawson. I'm a police officer, and I've realized I've been part of a problem I didn't want to admit existed, but I'm here to change that." The room was quiet but supportive. Across the city, Naomi continued her work, now a public figure advocating for reform. Her voice was being heard far beyond the courtroom. Her message resonated across interviews, town halls, and policy discussions. One evening, after a long day, Naomi returned to her office and found a letter waiting. The handwriting was rough, deliberate. "Naomi, I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I heard you. I've started the work, training, community engagement. I'm learning, I'm listening. Thank you for holding me accountable, even when you didn't have to." Naomi held the letter for a long moment, then tucked it in her desk drawer. She wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet. But something inside her felt lighter. Months passed. The police department rolled out new training protocols. A civilian review board was established. It wasn't perfect. Change never was. But it had begun. One evening, Naomi stood on the steps of the courthouse, city lights glowing behind her. She looked down at her phone. Another message from a community group asking for her help. A tired smile touched her lips. Across town, Jack stood in front of a newly painted mural on the side of the precinct. Justice, unity, and hope spread across the wall. He ran his fingers over the paint, remembering the man he used to be and the one he was trying to become. As the sun dipped below the horizon, two people stood in different places, connected by a courtroom, divided by experience, yet bound by a shared commitment to do better. Justice wasn't a moment. It was a journey. And for Jack and Naomi, it had only just begun,